Hello, good evening. How are you? Nice to meet you all again. Do you speak Swedish, all of you? Yeah. Yeah, so we can speak Swedish, can we? No. There's always somebody destroying the party. I'm kidding. We're so happy to have the opportunity to have so many people here from around the world. And what we're going to talk about is feministic economy and social development, and the seminar is called Be. Because we are going to look forward, we are going to solve the problem together. Isn't that great? I mean, you will remember Friday the 13th. Okay, and full moon. Ooh. You will remember this day because it will never ever occur again as the day we solved the problems. Huh? The best day ever, exactly. That's exactly what we think. So how do we get the Nordic governments to mainstream gender and monitor equality work and analyze global crises from a gender perspective? That is what we're going to discuss, and solutions and conclusions and so on. There are some seats over here if you need in front, and I can see some seats here, so please. Ja, tyvärr. Så tror jag att jag vill stå här och styla på engelska. Alltså, ursäkta. Jag vill prata mitt modersmål, nästan modersmål faktiskt, hellre, men... Japp. Det är någon musik, okej. Kan någon som är lite ansvarig kolla så att de kan sluta spela musik i andra salen? Nej. Va? Nu tog det slut, va? Nej, inte? Okay, only 5 minutes. They have promised that it will be only be 5 minutes. Okay, so let's start because they are very, very strict with the time here. And I know that you are very busy, all of you, and you have been listening to so many interesting and intelligent people today and inspiring people. So I will start this by welcoming. We will start with some culture, and we will meet this great woman. I know that some of you might have seen her on TV or when she performs around the Nordic countries, but she has performed from Kosovo to Pakistan, everywhere. And her name is Shazia Mirza. She's an award-winning British stand-up comedian and a feminist. Please give her a warm hand.
Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here. That's right. I perform all over the world, and today I'm here. Performing to 20 lesbians in a room in Malmo. So things are going really well. Now, I've been asked to come here today to do some comedy, on some of the issues that are happening around in the conference. So the first one that they asked me to do was asylum and immigration. Being brown, they felt that I qualified for this. And so I'm going to do a few jokes about that. Are you all following this? You look very blank. Do you all speak English? Am I speaking too fast? No? Okay, I'll speak faster. So I'm British, but my parents are from Pakistan, so thank you for letting me into your country. I promise to leave when this is all over. I won't stay. But people don't believe that I'm British. I mean, what is migration? What is immigration? I mean, I think of myself as British. But recently I went to India and I had to go and apply for a visa. So I went to the visa office in London and the woman said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I'm from England. I'm British." And she said, "No." "Where were you born?" I said, "Birmingham." She said, "No. Before that." I said, "I've only ever been born once." And that was into Birmingham. She said, "Yes, but before that, where are you from? I said, what do you mean before that? She said, well, where are your parents from? I said, oh, my parents are from Pakistan. She went, oh, so you're Pakistani. I said, no, I'm British. I love misery. Bad weather. And I've got a tea towel with Princess Diana's head on it. I am definitely British. She said, yes, but before that, you're from Pakistan. I said, what's this before that business? You know, if that's the logic we're going by, I'm from Africa, so are you. Why are we having this conversation? But then I realized that in India, they have reincarnation. So maybe in my past life, I was reincarnated as a Pakistani. But I thought, how shit must I have been to have been reincarnated back into Birmingham twice? People never believe that I'm British. I go to America a lot, not to blow anything up, just for comedy. And I always do really well when I'm in America because they think I'm Mexican. I have never been offered so many cleaning jobs in my whole life. I was talking to this woman. She said to me, oh, I love what you do. I understand everything you're talking about because I used to live in Islam once. I said, oh, yes, whereabouts? There was a lot of prejudice while I was there. Anybody with a moustache was a target. My mum was attacked. We have any hairy women in? Come on, I think so. See, some women are scared to admit that they're hairy. These days, younger women, they're scared to admit that they're hairy because they think men don't like hairy women. This is not true. Men love hairy women. My mum is very hairy. She has a beard and a moustache. And she started to bleach her facial hair. I've told her to stop this now because when she gets in a lift under the lights, she looks like Father Christmas. One of the themes of this conference is sexuality, women's bodies, girls' bodies. And I have to tell you that my mother wears the burqa. She wears the burqa. She's covered from head to toe in black because she doesn't want to be seen with my dad. So don't think that these women are oppressed, yeah? We've got the upper hand here. But this is true. All the women in my family, they all wear the burqa. And it's great because they all use the same passport. We've saved a lot of money. My brothers, they've started to use my mother's passport now as well. Sometimes, especially when I'm traveling abroad, people ask me really silly questions. They say to me things like, why does your mother walk 5 steps behind your father? And I say, you know, well, he looks better from behind. But actually, these days, the women are walking 5 steps in front of the husbands because of the landmines. Wrong gig. And the thing is, people don't know whether to laugh or not. That's a big problem, you know, because they think, oh, my God, I don't want to offend anybody. And this is a problem with migration and stuff, is that people don't like to talk about it because they don't want to offend anybody. You know, I went to New York recently, and where everybody in America is an immigrant. I was walking down the street in New York, and this man shouted out, he went, "Oi, you Paki, go back to India." I thought, my God, you have to admire racists these days. They're not even trying to be accurate. The thing is, people are scared to offend people. My friend said to me, were you offended by that? Were you offended? I said, don't be stupid. I'd like to see accuracy in racism. I was doing this gig the other night. This man was introducing me, this old white man. He was really worried about how to say my name because he didn't want to offend me. My name is Shazia Mirza. He kept saying to me, how do I say it? How do I say it? Is it Shazia? Is it Shitsia? Is it Shiraz? Mirza. How do I say this? Is it Mirza? Is that all right? I said, look, just don't worry about it yet. Just go on stage and introduce me as Shirley Bassey. Now, he went on stage that night. He was so nervous. He introduced me as Shava Minzad. And I thought, how can you get it so badly wrong? You go from Shazia Mirza to Sheva Minzad. You know, Sheva Minzad sounds like a Pakistani hair removal product. But I wasn't offended, you know. A few days later, I was walking down the street and this man came up to me. He said, "Oh, I love your work, Benazir." Now, you're not really a woman. You're not really a woman. You're not really a successful woman unless you're married. So, in my culture, do we have any married people in? We have any married people? Nobody's married. Just 3 people. And so even when you have the choice and the right, you don't want to take it up. Okay. And everybody else is not married. Yes. In my culture, you're not really worth anything unless you're married, you know. My mum, she obviously really wants me to get married, but obviously Muslim men, they don't really want to marry me because I speak. But are they? Swedish men are the same. Is that why all the women in Sweden are lesbians? I was wondering about the high percentage. But I am quite looking forward to my wedding day. I can't wait to meet my husband. But my friend Julie, she always says to me, "How can you sleep with someone you don't know?" I said, "Well, you do it all the time." When I was growing up, my parents were quite strict. I was never allowed to have boyfriends, and I always felt like I was missing out. I always wanted to be like my white friends who had abortions, herpes, and chlamydia. But my mum used to say, "You have to wait until you're married, and then your husband will give you that." First time my parents tried to marry me off was when I was 17. He was 45, so he was quite young. He was a cousin of a cousin of a cousin of a cousin, because I've always wanted deformed children. A cousin of a cousin of a cousin of a cousin. You have to be careful in Muslim circles, because you could end up sleeping with yourself. And you know, we have many taboos in our culture. You know, as I was growing up, no sex before marriage. You know, otherwise no man will want to marry you. And I never understood this, because I'm not interested in sex. I mean, it's been such a long time now. I don't think about it anymore. I think the only way I'm going to get it now is if it snows heavily and someone slips in. Don't feel sorry for me. I've got 3 degrees and I've got a lot of reading done. I'm actually thinking of setting up a Facebook fan page now for my virginity, to see how many pokes I get. These are not jokes. This is real life. But I have to tell you that recently I was invited to this conference in London called the 100 Women Conference, which was organised by the BBC, and where they invited 100 women who they felt were changing the world. And there were some amazing women, though. There was Sherry Blair, Bianca Jagger, and some really amazing women. And I turned up there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I met this. I have to tell you, it was mainly lesbians, really, at this event, because they're the only women that get stuff done. But I was at this conference, and I met this woman, a black woman, and she was wearing very colourful clothes. She was wearing an orange hat, green jacket, purple trousers. Oprah. It was Oprah, and she said to me, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a comedian." And she said, "Oh my God, I love comedians. I think comedians are amazing. It's so brave what you do, you know, as a woman standing there trying to make people laugh. And sometimes it can be difficult depending where you go." And I said, "Oh, you know, it's nothing really, you know." And I said to her, "Oh, where are you from?" And she said, "Oh, I'm from Nigeria." And I said, "Oh, are you the one that keeps sending me all those emails?" She said she loved comedians. I'm a comedian. I thought I'd show her an example of my work. this woman, she went, "Do you think that is funny?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I do not think that is funny." "You think that is funny? Is that the kind of comedy that you do? That is not funny. I am really offended. That is not funny at all. Is this what you do? You're just reinforcing stereotypes." I said, "Well, I've got a friend called Gina. She's Nigerian, and she tells these kind of jokes." She said, "I don't care what Gina does. It is not funny." Now, I was really taken aback because, if I'm in a gig and somebody doesn't find me funny, no, they just won't laugh. They won't just stand up in the middle of my gig and go, "Do you think that is funny? That is not funny. I don't think you are funny at all." So I was really taken aback, And, because I don't like to offend people. Comedians just want to make people laugh. I didn't want to offend her. Anyway, it turns out that she was the Nigerian finance minister. Yeah. Yeah, so it was her sending me those emails. But I thought, why can't you just take the day off from being the Nigerian finance minister and have a laugh? Be yourself. I took the day off from being a 24-hour professional Muslim. Why don't you take the day off and just have a bit of a laugh? But then I realised she's a woman and she's the Nigerian finance minister. She has to be like that all the time, 24 hours a day, otherwise she will not be taken seriously. Men can banter in the workplace. They can have a laugh. They can say to women, "Oh, a great pair of tits." If you are a woman, you have to be in that professional role 24 hours a day. And I was angry with her because I thought, my God, why doesn't she just have a laugh with me? Then I realised, if you are the Nigerian finance minister, you must get that all the time. So it's time to sort out your economy. And stop sending me those emails. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, that was great. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jag ska stoppa med skorna här också. Så. Lovely, lovely. I could hear so much more of that. So, dear friends and ladies and gentlemen, now I just need to present this great panel. And before I present the panel, I would like to say hi to Lisbeth Jørgensen from Denmark. She's writing the report from this seminar, and you can also write down your suggestions and leave them to Lisbeth. Okay? Say hi give her a warm hand. And now, please welcome Katrina Anna Gudmundsdottir. Take the stage. Project Manager for the implementation of gender budgeting of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. Toril Nusad from Norway, Head of Civil Servants Union at University of Tromsø, and one of the leaders of Women's Front of Norway. And last but not least, Agneta Stark from Sweden, Associate Professor of Business and Economic Gender Research, past president of the International Association of Feminist Economics, and an icon in Sweden, one of my role models. So we have 3 different Nordic countries, and I wonder, maybe Katrina Anna would like to start with a presentation or an introduction on feminist economic and the social development.
Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to take the opportunity to thank for the opportunity to be here and talk about this very important subject. How do we get... Oh, you want to hear me too? Okay. It is on. Okay. Okay. So, how do we get governments to mainstream gender into the budget? I put together this slide to emphasize the 4 structures I'm convinced need to be in place for this to successfully happen. The politics, the academia, the women's movement, and the infrastructure. First of all, the politics, or the politicians, to be more exact. From there, we need to get the political commitment, the political will, and, if we are lucky, also the vision. This is absolutely necessary for the top-down approach to work. The people working within the government need to feel the support from the people in power in order to prioritize gender budgeting in their work. Before I came here, I asked around at the Ministry of Finance in Iceland. And my question was, what will it take to convince the people in power to do gender budgeting all the way? And I got 2 answers. First of all, you need women in politics, especially as ministers, to gain the necessary support. And second, you need results. You need to show the benefits and that it actually works. And that brings me to the next 3 structures on the slide. They will bring us the proof, so to speak, that gender budgeting actually works. The academia needs to bring us the research and education. I don't know how it is in the other Nordic countries, but in Iceland you can't study feminist economics. And that is a problem. It means we don't have the necessary expertise combining knowledge of gender equality and economics or public finances. The third important structure is the women's movement. There we need the activism and the pressure so the people in power will actually see that gender budgeting matters. In other words, there comes the pressure and incentive. And last but not least, I would like to talk about infrastructure. We need the knowledge within the system, and this is actually my job, what I work with. And based on my experience, the lack of experience and expertise within the system is a hindrance. That's why I emphasize having ongoing projects so people can learn by doing, and so you can show hands-on results. When crisis hits, you need to know how to be there already within the system. You need to know how to be there already within the system, so that people will feel confident and know the value beforehand. So I would like to say that in order to get the political commitment necessary for mainstreaming gender into the budget, and for it to be used in the time of crisis, you need all of these 4 elements working together. A lack in any of these areas is a hindrance for successful use of gender budgeting, whether it is in a time of crisis or not. So I would like to end by quoting a remarkable Swedish woman by the name of Margareta Wimberg. She came to Iceland about 10 years ago. And in one of her speeches, she said something that has stuck with me ever since. And that is that gender equality has to be created like everything else. For example, like computers. And I've had this in mind ever since, and I'm actually listed in the Icelandic phone book as a gender equality designer, inspired by her. And this is what we need to do with gender budgeting. It is a tool that we need to use to create gender equality. So let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gender equality designer. Oh, what a title. That's so cool. Do we have more gender equality designers in here? Oh, one only. Okay. But when we leave, I suspect we will have more of them. Thank you so much. We will get back to you very soon. Now, please, Turil Nustad from Norway. Nustad.
Thank you, and thank you for being invited here. It's a pleasure and an honor. I'm a trade union activist, and I'm also a women's activist for many, many years. And I think that the knowledge I've got in these kind of struggles is a very important experience when we are going to make politics for the future. I think one determining factor for gender equality is that we have and can keep a welfare state with public sector responsible for the welfare services. And that we have welfare services as child care and care for elderly people, who is the state sector is responsible for. And that this should not be made by private solutions. In the Nordic countries, we have had quite big results in these areas over the last 30 years. But what we see now is that they are under attack. The financial crisis, both in Europe, we've seen that the public sector is building down, and this is mostly attack on the rights of the women. But we also see the same thing in the Nordic countries. I think, and especially now we see it in Norway with a new kind of government. And we also have the strong forces in the European Union, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, who is traveling around and telling people and countries to reduce the spending on the public sector and asking for more private solutions. They have been in Norway and said that we should have more private kindergartens, we should have more private services for the elderly and things like that. And they are pressing for the privatizations of these services. And I think that's something we have to fight against. We also see, I don't know if that's in the other countries, in the Nordic countries, but in Norway we have something they call the kontantstøtten, which is that we get paid to stay home and look after the children ourselves, and not using...
We call it vårdnadsbidrag in Swedish.
Yeah, and you get it if you don't use the public kindergarten. You can stay home yourself, or you can buy other women to come into your home. And now we also see, I think it's also in the other countries, that we have a growing group of domestic workers, au pairs, who is coming in, and they have no rights whatsoever. In Norway, I suppose that's the same in the other countries. And I think that's a big problem, and that's a big challenge for us. 3 years ago, the International Labour Organization, ILO, made a new declaration for domestic workers' rights. 3 years after, no government has ratified this, even not the Nordic governments. And I think that should be one of the claims. Many other things we can give priority. We can have more kindergartens. We can raise the wages in the public sector up to the level of the male dominant workers and trades. So it's possibilities, but we have to fight, and it's not coming for free. I mean, we don't get these politicians to do that on their own, so they have to be pressed to do things. And that's where the women's movement and the trade unions coming in.
Yeah, thank you. But I was also thinking about IMF, you know, when they ask governments to reduce public spending and things like that. I mean, it doesn't even sound so democratic. I mean, people vote for their politicians, for their policies, and IMF presents their model like being some kind of objective, you know, miracle model. It never stops to amaze me how they can come away with it. What do you think? Yes, Agneta.
I think it's very, very interesting, the almost nervous breakdown Europe's top leaders had when it turned out that in the middle of the Greek very serious crisis, they were going to have elections. Elections. This was serious. Anything could happen. I mean, the whole outset of that, asking the citizens, And talking about the citizens in that way was deeply insulting to democracy. And it may be that a country in crisis, the citizens will have difficulty in making choices, in knowing effects of choices, in making the right choices from whatever point of view you will have. But saying that this is so important, we can't possibly include people in it, that says something about despising the general public and the voters, which I think is a very, very serious thing. This is so incredibly serious that we can't let the people in. I think that's a very, very grave situation in democratic countries. At the same time as many countries rightly demand that new countries who not yet have democracy as a ruling system, that they should include it. How can they at the same time talk about and have these opinions?
Well, I would say it's important that we don't always put the blame on the men. Perhaps I'm in the wrong place. But what have we done ourselves? We got the vote 1921, and my grandmother, she was so happy because now we could do something ourselves. But what have we done? Have we engaged in political parties? I don't care what party you take, but as long as you go into a political party and do something, we are not allowed to quarrel unless we do anything to change ourselves. We can't always say to the man, solve it for us. We have to solve our own things and take responsibility. This morning I learned that in the labor organization at the board, there are only 3 women out of 18. And they ask us to all public companies to have at least 40% women at the board. Start with your own door. And so I think we have to do something ourselves. We can change the world if we do something, not only talking. And last, finally, dear Agneta, I'm not sure we were at the same seminar last day, and I'm not sure that Anders Borg had to choose the lower floor himself. I think someone else did that for him. Thank you.
I'd like to hear your view on, or from all 3 of you, what you think about basic income, medborgarlön, basic income, if it's a good idea and how it can be financed.
Okay. So you can please answer these questions, and then I have seen, people. So I'm going to collect your questions. So please.
I was directly addressed. What the support stockings did was support women in all parties across all party lines, and said in 93, 94, we will start a women's party. We won't do it if you increase the participation of women in the traditional parties, because we wanted to support women all across the political spectrum. And that was a very important point in that. And we also finished off this with a party for all the women in parliament. And most of them came, 2 parties refrained from coming. As it comes, I am quite sure that Anders Borg did not choose the room himself, but I think had he signaled early on that he was interested, he would have begun a big room, a big audience, and the press would have been there. Now it seems to be, the organization seemed to be taken aback because it was almost impossible 3 days ago to know who would be in that seminar. So I think it's a very clear signal that gender issues are important to the government in the situation we are now. And having 5 ministers in the same conference is very unusual for any but the top industrial conferences I've been to. I appreciate their presence, but I think they come because they take an interest, and I think that they take an interest because it's a political hot movement. And also, I don't think I've ever blamed men as men, but rather for making very strange decisions at times. And Alexandra definitely was not too kind to Frau Merkel or earlier on. So I think you have a strong point in we have to drive our own issues strongly. And I think that can be... Actually, I'm very pleased when I have 4 women from 4 different parties fighting hard and fairly about political issues with 2 or 3 journalists, all women, and they discuss finance policy or foreign trade or something. That was not the case 25 years ago, so I think that is progress.
The question about the basic income, I think the most important issue for the women's movement should be the economic independence of women, that they should have a wage and be able to be economically independent of their husbands and their families, and that's we should also organize the society in this way. That's why it is also important to have social services, kindergarten, and things like that in the public sector is free for the public to use. And I think we should give priorities to these things in the budget. When it's a question about women must do something themselves, for ourselves, of course we must agree with that. But I think the women's movement that's what we have been doing the last 50 years, 100 years. I mean, if you go 30 years back, it was a minority at the universities. But today it's the majority of the PhD students, the majority at the master students at the Nordic universities is now women, and many people are very concerned that there are too many of them. So I think we have made progress, but we also get resistance. And it's not going to be a free way to the heaven. That's what we see now.
First, I would like to address the point made about the lack of alternative models. I think that if you look at the IMF, they have been heavily criticized for what they've done in the past. So I think they have alternative routes to go if they really, really want to. And I'm going to point to Iceland as an example. The IMF came to Iceland, and I think that they didn't take as an aggressive route in Iceland as they usually have. Hopefully that's a sign that they are learning, but not that Iceland is a privileged country. But time will tell. About the next question or the statement about not always put the blame on the men. The way I always look at it is that we live in a gender system that we are born into. So we are raised as boys and girls, men and women, into certain roles. So the women are raised to be women and to promote the gender system and to maintain it through our roles as women. And the same goes for the men. So I've never looked at this as blaming the men or the women in particular, rather that we are all participants in the gender system, so we all have it within our power to change it or to maintain it. So it's our choice, but having said that, research has
common with the women rather than men, but what other things can the trade unions do in order to make the world better for all of us and women economically?
Okay, thank you. What else can the trade unions do? Don't answer yet. We will take some more questions. I don't have a question. You don't have a question, but you have a question.
Jeg må si dette på norsk, for jeg er ikke så god i engelsk, så da må kanskje du oversette.
Min norsk er ikke så veldig bra.
Nei, ja. I alle disse nordiske landene, men også ellers i verden, så er det sånn at kvinner er under menn i arbeidslivet og ellers. Og når det gjelder budsjetter og alt, ikke sant? Det er jo ikke fordi vi ikke har kjempet kvinnekampen, men fordi vi har sterke motstandere. Og da tenker jeg, er det noe felles med disse landene som vi bor i? Jo, de er kapitalistiske. De har et felles økonomisk system. Hva med å snakke om det, siden vi snakker om kvinner og økonomi? Er det noe med det kapitalistiske økonomiske systemet som har kjønn? Er det
Is there anything about the economic capitalist system that has gender is her answer.
Ja. Og så er det mulig å lage Is it possible to make the capitalist without gender? Or is it, eller er kjønnet integrert i kapitalismen? Og hvordan det er også snakk om at man skal lage en grønn verden, en grønn kapitalisme. Er det sånn at vekst er en integrert del av kapitalismen? Er det mulig å tenke seg et annet samfunn eller en annen kapitalisme?
Okay, I can summarize the question. Is capitalism compatible with gender equality? Yes or no? Keep the question and Berit Ås. Yes, I will give you 1 second. Berit Ås, legenden här som har gjort härskarteknikerna.
I want to spread some optimism. Just a moment. Once we took the majority in the community council in Norway.
Is after 10 years nothing happened, even if women were on the list, was because those women were not feminists. And Annie Lööf, I wouldn't say is a feminist either, but Gudrun Schyman and Feminist Initiative, we are really feminists. And we're both men and women, so I would say vote Fi and change the world.
Yes, but I mean, if Annie Lööf, does Annie Lööf call herself a feminist? She does, yes. So if she does...
With all the respect, I think that it's up to each and everyone to be able to call themselves what they believe, because there's the feminism. I'm not against the Feministisk initiative. I think it's great that they exist, and I think it's very important that we work together. What we have in differences is how we look at the economy, and I think that's healthy, because if we are different, then in the end we can make a solution that will be much greater than it is today. So let's not fight whether you are feminist, I am feminist, or she is feminist. I can't call you a feminist if you hasn't called yourself feminist first. So she's a liberal feminist, as I am. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, you know, we can't have small debates in the debate. You know, we have to focus on one debate at a time. So.
Thank you. Thank you for this very, very interesting seminar.
Very short, eh?
Yes, Agneta, you must know about Hazel Henderson.
Yes.
Why don't we follow her ethical market, where every money must be value out of ethical market, and it's for women?
Okay, thank you. Okay, last one. I thought I saw somebody. Yeah? Okay, so thank you. Now, you have the last words, please. Who wants to start? Agneta?
I think patriarchy was considerably older, both than capitalism, communism, socialism, not humanism, but a number of ism, and perhaps only extremism was a very early result. That is, I think I would have great difficulty in saying that capitalism is incompatible with feminism, because communism or socialism have also been shown not to be compatible with feminism. In fact, we have not seen a really feminist political system yet. So I think it's a different... And I also find it very interesting. I don't know about Helmut Kohl these days, but when Angela Merkel was elected, he treated her appallingly. I was in Germany. He called her das Mädel, the girl. And I think he has lived, perhaps, to regret his choice of words. And the resistance that women in all political movements have met must be recognized. Then we all have our political preferences, values, ideals. But in a democracy, many of those are common to, and I think for many of us, feminism is one of those, and then it may be expressed in different ways. There are also things that we all dislike intensely, like intense exploitation of immigrants and other things we see in our societies. Hazel Henderson, yes, and there have been many proposed systems, and I think they are great as thinking pieces, but I have difficulty in seeing them realistically introduced. But thinking about them is very, very important. When I hear anyone saying we should start in school, I get slightly nervous, because that means nothing will happen for the next 30 years. And I rather start here and now with wherever you happen to be. I mean, gender equality can be introduced in any workplace, any group now. Yeah, the general director of Skolverket, Anna, and I lose her last name, she said most young children experience more gender equality at home than they do in schools. So they actually learn more about gender equality by their parents than the schools. So I think you have got a point in the schools. But schools are sort of the last bastion of change. They are not drivers of change. It seems that young parents are much more efficient drivers of change in their children. But it can be introduced into elder care first. I mean, you can start wherever you like, as long as it is now.
Thank you. Yes, Katarina.
I can be next. About the first question, if capitalism is compatible with gender, I totally agree with Agneta there. She said it so well that I have nothing to add. Patriarchy has survived all the different systems, and it's still surviving, so I think we need to integrate it into whatever system that we have in place at the time. There is one thing here, there was a question about that we need to challenge the concept of growth. And I think that's very true, that we need different and better measurements. Like it's always said about the growth, if you have a natural disaster or an environmental disaster or something, it goes into your GDP. So of course that's problematic, so we need to work on that. And I mean, there is a lot of work being done on it, but we still haven't implemented it into the actual economic theories or concepts being used within the system. The question about national economy based on growth and consumption is maybe related to this. I mean, the way that the system is now is problematic, so we have to try to keep on finding ways to improve it and change it. And be aware of the effects of the globalization and how we as Western nations are exploiting other more poorer countries, etc. Okay, then about the school system and the starting in schools. I always say that we have to start teaching the adults so they can teach the children. And that's also a problem if you don't have it if you don't teach the adults, there is nobody to teach the children. We can't start there. And then I would just like to, end maybe, because there was a little bit of debate about who can be called feminist or not. So I would like to tell you about the definition of a feminist that we have of the Feminist Association of Iceland, which I was lucky enough to be a spokeswoman for 4 years. We have the definition that a feminist is a person, a man or a woman, that knows that gender equality has not yet been achieved and wants to do something about it. So it's not enough to know. It's not enough to know that we're not there yet. You have to be willing to change. And if you can say yes to both of those questions, there you go. So then it's open to all kinds of different feminists.
So simple and so easy to sign on that. Thank you so much. And the last words?
And also so difficult, because it's also a question about what kind of changes you want. Because the right-wing party wants changes, but not the same changes that I will have. So that's a big question. The concept of growth. In the next 50 years, we can double or triple our income for all the workers, all in Norway. I suppose it's the same in Sweden. But I don't want that. I don't want that we should have double our income and have growth in the private consumption. I would like that we can use this money to build even better and stronger welfare states, having good wages for everybody, having good pensions for everybody. And that's a question about how the priority, how we use this income we are going to, these values we are going to create, and who is going to get hold of them. So that's the biggest fight, I think. I got a question about what can the union do out more than the pay gap and things like that. We have the Nordic model is a question about the welfare state, strong public services. And these welfare states, it's not coming from heaven. It was the trade unions that after the Second World War fight them through in the Nordic countries. And that's why we have a different kind of welfare system than they have in Germany and England. Because there the trade unions just fought for themselves. But in Norway they said we would like social security for everybody, for all inhabitants. That's why our mothers got pensions, even they hadn't been to work before. So I think that's... the trade unions can and must discuss what kind of society do we want.
Okay.
And on short term, I think they must claim, and we must claim from the conference, that to give the domestic workers and the au pairs in the Nordic countries status as workers and legal workers and give them rights, because they haven't done that today.
Thank you so much to the three of you. And please, you can write down a couple of suggestions and leave them to Lisbeth over there. Thank you so much for attending this seminar, and good luck. You have so much to do out there, all of you, feminists or not. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good luck.